acts so oddly that one might think I hypnotize them from the wings into making indecent gestures, were I to point out the faults in the novel. Suffice it to say that, after all but lapsing into false exotism or commonplace comedy, it soars to heights of purity and melancholy that I have only attained in the much later Ada. How do the main characters of Glory stand in relation to those of my other 14 Russian and American novels? The human interest seeker may ask. Martin is the kindest, uprightest, and most touching of all my young men, and little Sonia, of the lusterless dark eyes and coarse-looking black hair, her father, judging by his name, had Cheremisian blood, should be acclaimed by experts in amorous lure and lore as being the most oddly attractive of all my young girls, although obviously a moody and ruthless flirt. If Martin to some extent can be considered a distant cousin of mine, nicer than I, but also much more naive than I ever was, with whom I share certain childhood memories, certain later likes and dislikes, his pallid parents, per contra, do not resemble mine in any rational sense. As to Martin's Cambridge friends, Darwin is totally invented and so is Moon, but Vadim and Teddy existed in the reality of my own Cambridge past. They are mentioned under their initials NR and RC, respectively, in my Speak Memory 1966, Chapter 13, penult paragraph. The three staunch patriots dedicated to counter-Bolshevist work, Zilanov, Yagolyevich, and Gruzinov, belong to that group of people politically situated just to the right of the old terrorists and just to the left of the constitutional Democrats, and as far from monarchists on one side as from Marxists on the other, whom I was well acquainted with in the entourage of the very magazine which serialized Podvig, but none is an exact portrait of a specific individual. I feel obliged to give here the proper determination of this political type, recognized at once with the unconscious precision of common knowledge by the Russian intelligent who was the main reader of my books, because I still cannot reconcile myself to the fact, deserving to be commemorated by an annual pyrotechnical display of contempt and sarcasm, that in the meantime American intellectuals had been conditioned by Bolshevist propaganda into utterly disregarding the vigorous existence of liberal thought among Russian expatriates. "You're a Trotskyite, then," brightly suggested an especially limited left-wing writer in New York 1940, when I said I was neither for the Soviets nor for any Tsar. The hero of Glory, however, is not necessarily interested in politics. That is the first of two master tricks on the part of the wizard who made Martin. Fulfillment is the fugal theme of his destiny. He is that rarity, a person whose dreams come true. But the fulfillment itself is invariably permeated by poignant nostalgia. The memory of the childish reverie blends with the expectation of death. The perilous path that Martin finally follows into forbidden Zorland, no connection with Nabokov's Ziembla, only continues to its illogical end, the fairy tale trail winding through the painted woods of a nursery wall picture. Fulfillment would have been perhaps an even better title for the novel. Nabokov cannot be unaware that the obvious translation of Podvig is exploit, and indeed it is under that title that as Podvig is listed by bibliographers. But if you once perceive and exploit the verb utilize, gone is the Podvig, the inutile deed of renown. The author chose therefore the oblique Glory, which is a less literal but much richer rendering of the original title, with all its natural associations branching in the bronze sun. It is the glory of high adventure and disinterested achievement, the glory of this earth and its patchy paradise, the glory of personal pluck, the glory of a radiant martyr. Nowadays, when Freudism is discredited, the author recalls with a whistle of wonder that not so long ago, say before 1959, i.e. before the publication of the first of the 7 forewords to his English novels, a child's personality was supposed to split automatically in sympathetic consequence of parental divorce. His parents' separation has no such effect on Martin's mind, and only a desperate saphead in the throes of a nightmare examination may be excused for connecting Martin's plunge into his fatherland with his having been deprived of his father. No less reckless would it be to point out with woomy wonder that the girl Martin loves and his mother bear the same name. My second wand stroke is this. Among the many gifts I showered on Martin, I was careful not to include talent. How easy it would have been to make him an artist, a writer. How hard not to let him be one. While